Sadako Yamamura's very existence in DBD is a nerf to the pig. Let me explain. So it's no secret that the pig has not had a good time in DBD. She's never been the best killer and she has had a ridiculously high number of nerfs. Now of course some of these nerfs weren't very big, but nonetheless she had had a high number of nerfs. Last time I counted we were at 11 and that was years ago, so it's probably higher. And one of the biggest nerfs to the pig was in patch 2.5.0. This was when they decided to nerf the pig's terror radius and then give her some slight buffs to try and compensate for that, but ultimately the nerfs still outweighed the buffs. And the nerf was increasing her terror radius from 28 meters to 32. Now this was fairly big at the time because back then we actually tried to play the pig as a stealth killer because overall that's what she's meant to be. Back then it was already really hard to justify crouching because you lost so much movement speed and therefore lost a lot of time and pressure. However, this increase in terror radius forced players to crouch from further away, therefore being slow for longer, losing more pressure and overall catching less people off guard, making her whole ability less useful. The buffs that were meant to offset this was a faster crouch speed and then her terror radius would vanish faster when crouching. Well, one of these buffs was redundant because what's the point of her terror radius fading faster when she already has to crouch from miles away? Although the faster crouch speed was a welcome addition to her kit. Once again, even back then the pig wasn't that strong, so how did they get away with this nerf to someone who already wasn't that good? Well, they described it as instead of a targeted nerf, it was a change in game design philosophy. They wanted to standardize killers and their terror radiuses based on their movement speed. So all 115% killers would have 32 meters of terror radius, and then all 110% speed killers would have 28 meters. But in day one of this design philosophy change, the idea already started to show cracks, because Michael Myers was left out of this standardization entirely. Of course for good reason, because his whole identity is based on having a small terror radius, but he's a 115% speed killer. He should have 32 meters terror radius, right? Well no, he's got 16 meters, which completely ignores this standardization entirely, and having an outlier already defeats the point of the standardization. But since it was Myers and his whole identity was based on having a small terror radius, we let it slide. Well, with the release of the newest killer Sadako Yamamura, this design philosophy is thrown in the trash once again. On the PTB for Sadako Yamamura, she was absolutely garbage. She was so bad. And luckily on release, the devs actually gave her a series of buffs to try and make up for this fact. And one of those buffs was reducing her terror radius from 32 meters to 24 meters, although she still maintains her fast movement speed of 115%. Now, I'm definitely not opposed to this change, she quite frankly needed it. However, this goes to show that that was not a change in design philosophy, that was in fact a targeted nerf to the pig, increasing her terror radius for no good reason. Now, if we pretend for a moment that every killer did get standardized as behavior originally said they would, is that even a good idea anyway? Clearly a terror radius is something that does affect the balance of a killer, and some killers certainly need a smaller one, as their kits can tend to rely on it, with Pig and Sadako being prime examples of this. What are the positive aspects of achieving this standardization like they wanted to? Making the game easier to learn? DBD is already an extremely simple game. I don't think making it even simpler is going to help anything. Maybe with the new release of Sadako, they'll be more willing to change the pig's terror radius. Although, seeing her nerf history, I feel like the only way that's going to happen is if they reduce her movement speed.